Hi, thank you so much for taking the time to meet with me today. We have the test results for your daughter, Polly, and they suggest that she meets the criteria for phonological disorders or a phonological impairment. Today, I wanted to meet so we could briefly go over what phonological disorders are and specifically learn more about the phonological disorder that your daughter has and the processes that she needs some support with. We will also talk a little bit about how the diagnosis process went, and finally, we will address some treatment plans and approaches. So, just for your all's information, phonological disorders or phonological impairments, they are used interchangeably, but it means that there are patterned or repeated mistakes made for certain grammatical systems. These grammatical systems could be the syllable structure process, so misunderstandings more at the syllable level of words. Substitution processes, which we will focus on with your daughter Polly, as she showed significant signs of gliding, and assimilatory processes. Substitution processes are when a child or an individual uses a certain sound that shouldn't be in the word. So for your daughter, she struggles the most with gliding, and that occurs when an individual uses w and ya instead of l and sounds. So for example, Polly would be saying the word lion when she means to say the word lion. There's a lot of research about phonological disorders and how to approach it. So, and also for Polly's age, this is fairly common, so don't worry too much. We have a lot of tools available to help you all and Polly improve her communication. Next, let's talk a little bit about the diagnosis process. The results that suggest she has a phonological disorder were her speech sound production assessment. This was a quantitative analysis looking at how frequently she's making certain substitutions. And as I mentioned before, gliding is her biggest area of improvement, but we will work with her on that. Also, her use of gliding is impacting her severity and intelligibility scores. That just means it can be difficult for people who don't know Polly well to understand her, and it's important that we target her intelligibility in treatment. That way, in school, in her education, in her social experiences, and even in the long term in her professional experiences, her communication will not be hindered if we pursue treatment in helping her target her gliding. So these results suggest to us that she has a phonological disorder. Her case history, oral mechanism evaluation, hearing screening, stimulability, and assessment of speech processing all indicate normal functioning. So that just tells us that Polly's neurological functioning, auditory system, it's all working well. And another important thing to note about phonological disorders is that they are not a motor-based error. So her articulators are strong. She's doing very well. Next, let's talk a little bit about what treatment might look like. There are many different approaches to working with phonological disorders. And you can find different speech-language pathologists who can help you in different ways based on the approach. Personally, I recommend the traditional developmental approach for treating phonological disorders. The traditional developmental approach will specifically work on those earlier developing sounds and help her develop the later developing sounds. And since Polly is still very young, I think that this would work very well with her. In addition to the traditional developmental approach, a very common aspect of treatment that is very well researched and supported is the minimal pairs approach. The minimal pairs approach looks at two words that are extremely similar, but they only have one different sound. And the idea behind this approach is to help the child isolate those sounds and focus on them, as well as understand that those little differences in speech can impact the word meaning. So that way she can understand how to use her articulators to create the sound that is needed. And the importance in doing so is that it will change the word meaning and how other people understand her speech. So the minimal pairs approach is going to be crucial in this. I've included a goal. The goal is primarily for speech language pathologists, so it can be very helpful for whoever you choose to work with Polly in targeting her gliding processes and her phonological disorder. And I've also included some resources for you all as well. I highly recommend looking at ASHA. It's a fantastic organization that has a lot of helpful information to support you all as parents in learning more about phonological disorders and how to help Polly. I also recommend reaching out to a speech language pathologist to create a plan in implementing a strategy of treating Polly. If you have any questions at all, please don't hesitate to reach out, and I'm more than happy to help. Thank you for your time.